Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to make a powerful testimony about Limitless. Have you watched the movie Limitless? Have you watched the movie Limitless? Well, let me explain something to you. If you haven't seen the movie Limitless, I suggest you go and watch it right now, as fast as you can. The drug you see in the movie Limitless is a drug I developed back in 1994. 1994. Now, I'm not saying I'm the only one, but I can guarantee you this. It was the first time it was seen on the streets anywhere in the world. First time it was on the streets anywhere in the world. Because this drug was being suppressed. And the military knew about it. NASA knew about it. And it was a hidden tool. Hitler created this drug. Japan first registered this drug in 1895. Methamphetamine from a plant called mayang, the organic product. Mayang is seen as a tree of life. In the Vatican, they have a mushroom, right, that's declared the tree of knowledge. Okay, and I just want you to think about things that you know nothing about. This is in the oldest Bibles in the world. Okay, the tree of life and the tree of knowledge. The tree of knowledge is of good and evil, an outside influence on our reality. If we're not in the wrong mindset and we live in the mind, we live in the tree of knowledge with artificial intelligence, everybody's mutation with voices of mind that ultimately designed for human extinction, declared by Gemigris and 16,000 top scholars on the same page, with the book Freedom, the freedom of the human condition we all suffer from. And 98.7% of the population, their voltage reliability in their DNA, their aura, is anti-clockwise and only works 3.5 hours a night. They go in corruption, curse, collusion during the daytime and can only repair at nighttime. There are some people can repair 24 hours a day with their aura clockwise. Some of these people can master the mind, use 100% of their brain. They have mental telepathy, ESP, remote UN, telekinesis, levitation, spoon-bending, clock winding, folding space and time with deja vu to predict the future and can prevent what's going to happen. These people know how to use their genetic memory and their ancestry genetic process with their ancestry tools, coded in their own DNA. And they know how to think dimensionally with multiple perceptions, and rather being trapped in the narrative in their mind. They're in spirituality and not mentality. They're in spirituality and not in mentality. Most people are trapped inside the personality with mentality and do not know what they do. They can only use 7 to 15% of the brain in the whole Western civilization on anti-clockwise intelligence, all programmed, engineered into their mind, into a conscious singularity by WF, set up by the Rockefellers. The consciousness is a mental event, a mental process, an illusion, imagination, set up deliberately to trap people inside their mind with IQ and evolution mutation. So they mutate from generation to generation to normalize what was more yesterday non-stop and twist the fabric to suit themselves with social engineering and programming. Today, there is no one left in the world that can use a genetic memory and a genetic process coded in their own DNA with natural selection and a natural order in life. It's a known fact, declared worldwide. They cannot use their natural organic motor skills because these are your natural organic motor skills that you're born with when you come into this world. When I was 5 years old, I told my mother about the worst moment in her life in 1945 in World War II. So I went in a time where time stands still like preserves into the past and into the future. I was seen as a freak of nature and rejected by my parents. I got rejected at school for the same reason, for having abilities that other children didn't have, and I didn't know. I was just a child. I was innocent. I was an innocent child and had no idea why I was different, and I thought we were all the same, as any child would. As any child would naturally think. Naturally and organically, and as an innocent child. I had an outside influence on my reality throughout my life. And people don't understand that outside influence. They haven't got a clue because they don't have it. And if they don't have it, they don't know. And that's how things really are. At 24 years old, I stamped an Indian number in such a way, the X-ray machine 5 years later could not detect it. I went on an RSVP list report, research, succeed, victory, perfection. Because I did something that nobody else in the world ever done. Because I did something that nobody else in the world ever did. At the age of 34, I was on the front page, 33, I was on the front page of the Brisbane Courier Mail as King Vice, and I was on 17 current affairs shows as a mastermind of loopholes of laws and mastermind manipulation. I could unravel everything. And there's a reason for this. I was brought into the world to be different. And I'm not in control of my vessel. Okay, and I want you to listen to me very carefully. I am not in control of my vessel, but I'm not having a bad human experience like everybody else is. They're having a terrible human experience without realizing it. They're not in control of their own vessel to master their own mind, use 100% of their brain. And I am. I am. And I went through life very different than most others. I was in the underground world for a reason, and I was meant to be there. I started to play with drugs. Went into methamphetamine because it cured heroin. It cured people on heroin. And it has a side effect to stop so many evil things that heroin was destroying in families, lovers, and friends. Heroin is a putrid drug and destroys families beyond your mind. When you are living in the streets and you see what happens with heroin, half my mates died on heroin, 3 died in my arms. Okay, when I went through this path, I OD'd myself at 18 years old and took a drug overdose. I was on methadone, but I wasn't on heroin. But methadone was no different. I had a raging habit, took a drug overdose, and I took the Tree of Knowledge mushroom. I took a blue mimi, a mushroom. I took mushrooms a few times and a few other drugs. I went into parallel worlds and saw things that blew my mind away. Okay, like the boogeyman, the monster in the bed, the celestial beings in other dimensional fields. And when you get high as a kite on certain drugs, you start to open up your sixth sense with parallel dimensional thinking. And you start to see things that so far beyond your mind with other celestial beings that scares the living shit out of you. And some of them are really nice. Okay, a lot of people talk about this, taking drugs all over the world and having conversations with the other side. And I put many videos on my platform about this. The CIA disclosure, a year and a half ago, I put a video up, an hour and a half to 2 hours long. I put up many times on my platforms. If you scroll back on the witness page or Sweet with some Bible page, you'll find a video with the CIA with methamphetamine and disclosures. An hour and a half explanation to 2 hour explanation about meth, how it opens up perceptions, and still used by the military to this day. Hitler used it, and the military used it to fight Hitler, to fight back. And that's being disclosed by CIA disclosure, that the militaries in England and America had to use the drug because what Hitler created was the most powerful truth serum in the world, and people don't talk about this. Think about meth and amphetamine being a truth serum from a planet called Mayan. Back in 1895, they found that 94% of people found it as a love drug, an enlightenment drug and a love drug, okay, a truth serum. And 16% of people turned very evil, and they created the kamikaze, the most evil suicide squad in the world, in Japan. They were so evil they were willing to take their own life to take yours. That's how powerful this truth serum is. Just think about this for a moment. So powerful that it would make 16% of people in the suicide squad, it would make them take their own life to take yours. That's really evil, right? When you really stop and think about someone willing to sacrifice their own life to take yours. That's what that drug made them do. But what does it show you here? It shows you a truth serum. It shows you that 84% of people in 1895 saw this as a love drug and became very loving, compassionate people. And 16% were willing to take their own life to take yours. 16% in 1895. In 1920, they can make 16% of people kill. Today, it's declared they can make 100% of people kill in the militaries. The COVID vaccination mandates, it's proven over 98.7% will take the vaccination when it's mandated and they need money to stay at work. We've done plenty of tests of this, the placebo effect and people's mentality over the years. And we see the same statistics every 10 years. Every single decade, it increases with people that are willing to kill non-stop from 16% to 100% declared by the militaries today. Now you have to stop and think about things really hard. If the voices are declared to be ultimately designed for extinction in our mind, that sounds heavenly, like Christ consciousness, and doesn't exist, and it's only a personality, those personalities will put you back up against the wall under pressure in such a way when you believe in your own voice and you believe in yourself and you manifest your own truth and come to your own conclusion with reasoning, it's the age of nefarious because it's only 5 senses and negative fears without moral guilt and shame when it comes to the crunch, because you are controlled by stress, fear and anxiety in your body cells in corruption, coercion, in the daytime. And that means the whole world is controlled by stress and anxiety, and they die prematurely from stress-related diseases, from psychosis, because they're trapped in psychosis their whole life. No matter what they say, no matter what they believe in, 98.7% has 600 to 7,000 defective genes because of their mentality. From generation to generation, 77% of every Western child is born with chronic diseases because they live in massive denial, a species denial declared 2003. Now you have to listen to me very carefully, okay? If you understand what's going on right now, it's the greatest psychological warfare and spiritual warfare in human history. And the sixth sense, the third picture, the third eye, the picture that tells you 1,000 kind of light with dimensional thinking and remote viewing, mental telepathy and ESP and deja vu to predict the future and prevent what's going to happen is your natural organic medicines, and they do not work. It's your spirituality, it's your supernatural power, it's your superhuman abilities. In the 24th chromosome in dormancy, you can see in studies under research, 98.7% of the population is trapped in the 23rd chromosome, the seed of the dragon, and trapped in reptilian mentality in the mind, in their personality, with their mentality with a high IQ that only makes them good at what they do, but in fact not intelligent. Your mind's only a mathematical beauty to work things out with. IQ is based on 90% memory, it's a memory box. It's just a memory box. Okay, and you go into your mind all the time with personalities and believe in your own truth, but the voice of one that tells you to do that. That's been declared ultimately designed for human extinction because they're facts. Facts that people cannot wake up to from amnesia and the reincarnation trap. But they cannot use 27 biofield senses. They have 32 senses. They cannot use 85 to 93% of the brain. They can only use up to 15% with the highest IQ people in the world, which means they act for someone else when they can't master their own mind and use 100% of their brain. There's only a handful of people left in the world that can, and they're avoided the most by the whole human population that's trapped inside their mind with their own self-centered ego without a care factor. When their aura's anti-clockwise, they can't feel the truth. They don't know the difference between right and wrong because they don't follow their feelings. They follow the voice of mind to believe in their own truth and come to their own conclusion with reasoning by design. Okay, by design. And when they don't use their natural design and their natural gated motor skills, and they don't even have faith in their own biological genes to use their natural selection and their natural gated motor skills, it's because They can't remember how to. So they have amnesia. And it's coded in their DNA with genetic memory and a genetic process, okay, where you can do things that are so far beyond the mind, like deja vu. And I had that when I was 5 years old. Okay, so I know what I'm talking about. Okay, I know what I'm talking about. They put direction microphones on me, okay, the authorities, and I could feel the truth with remote viewing and see him standing in the courtroom, putting pen to paper with my name on it. And I had deja vu to predict the future and prevent what's going to happen. And they listened to the information on direction microphone in that moment. My arresting officer said, "Kim, I know you have an angel watching over you, considering the facts. I've been watching you for 10 years. And you set up the nightclub in Brisbane, TOC, when we were investigating you, under the toughest prostitution laws in Australian history. I was in the special squad. And I went to visit Squizzy, psychiatrists and social workers, and asked them why, on God's earth, they would support me and say I created the most positive atmosphere in the southeast corner of Queensland. Why they would write that on their magazine every single month for 2 years straight. Why would they write such a thing, that I created the most positive atmosphere, right, and had a relationship with everybody? The most positive atmosphere in the southeast corner of Queensland. That's a powerful statement made by psychiatrists and social workers in the Squeezy magazine every month for 2 years straight. It's because I supported them and got women off drugs and helped them with prostitution, as the government went against it and caused the biggest problem, right, the country had ever seen. Because Fitzgerald inquiry, it was the cops and politicians at the top level that sold all the heroin that killed my mates, okay, killed all my mates. All my mates half died and 3 died in my arms. It was a Fitzgerald inquiry with the police commissioner, Terry Lewis, that got 14 years jail, and Joe Bielke Peterson, the state premier, that was running 500 cops in the underground world with heroin and racketeering. And they were going to the brothels with little girls underage on heroin. And you know what they were doing there? One could only imagine. They were standing over everything with Hector Habiter. Hector Habiter got 6 years jail, but the police commissioner got 14 because they were running the show with Hector Habiter, the biggest figure in the underground world, standing over every brothel and every woman and selling heroin. Heroin that killed my mates. Protected by the governments at the top level, like the Trident Inquiry, like the Martin Bryan buyback plan, when they disarmed Australia. Every single one of these commissions and these inquiries was cops and politicians running the Trident Inquiry, running the lightning-rich crops, running Robert Rogerson and all the underground world with all the docks, running the Painters and Union on the docks, bringing drugs in everywhere, cops and politicians bringing the drugs in, right, in every single operation. And Trident Inquiry was the biggest car operation, where they were sending 4,000 stolen cars every month to LA from Melbourne, and it was 500 cops and politicians involved in this case. The lightning-rich inquiry, growing crops, massive crops, $5 billion worth of weed back in the 70s and early 80s, was run by over 5,000 police officers and politicians. 5,000 police and politicians were involved in the lightning-rich crops with Roger Robinson and the underground world, and bringing imported drugs in across the wolves, all protected by the same lot in every single inquiry. And I know that because I was working on ground level and attached to all of it at the very top level when I was a kid. Okay, involved in all these inquiries. So I know what's going on in the world, and I know what the plan is of Harari's plan and the world plan for 2030, because I know exactly what they were doing to mold it all when they built a new White House in Australia and put a pyramid on top with a fifth eye and put the hub in Australia that controls every satellite phone, radio wave, and CCTV in the world. The biggest think tank in the world, and the all-seeing eye for the World Wide Web. And people are oblivious to this, but I'm not, because we hacked the hub and exposed all the documents, and that's why Julian Assange got locked up in England for years. And I got brought into the Royal Commission's, the Star Chamber inquiry, #1 most wanted in the underground world, with 105 people arrested, that brought down the highest death toll of Hector and violence and misviolence in 30 years. And our police officer recommends us and retires the police force. That caused the Royal Commission been paying out for 23 years, and the stolen back generation of poverty, paying out $250 billion today by worldbank.org, because I got them in the Star Chamber inquiry, the biggest think tank in the world, for corruption, coercion, collusion and treasoning. And that was the introduction to me when the Federal Police and the National Crime Authority went to Parliament House to seek authority to unleash the biggest think tank in the world, the Star Chamber inquiry. And then we were arrested on the 1st of January 1999. And my product, my drug, I designed laboratory glass that took our 14-hour process down to 3.5 that no scientist ever thought of. And I developed bread manna from the Sumerian tablets, from a book called the Volume Books of Uncle Festus Volume Books. You know nothing about these books. That's why I'm going to tell you one of the most extraordinary stories in human history. 2 top scientists from NASA moved into Ormeau, Brisbane, Australia in 1980 when they deemed pseudoemergency dangerous. Here they created a happy pill that over 80% of the population was on. A happy pill. Very productive happy pill from methamphetamine. It's in fact amphetamine. And over 80% of the population was on this drug. A happy pill worldwide. Nobody believes in it. Trust me. You have no idea what you're talking about. You have no idea what you're talking about. We've been under mind control for 100 years by the Rockefellers into the mind, lost our 24th chromosome in 1920, lost our genetic memory in 1960, went into a polarized stage and a hypnotized stage to fact check Google herself like a robot, into a transhuman stage in a zombie apocalypse in the biggest soul trap in human history, all by design, with a faith document put in by the Rockefellers to invert the placebo effect in DNA, and he knew what he was doing. Okay, he brought out the secret covenant and made you consume every single thing you design for educated knowledge with law and order documents with chaos. And chaos goes into your body cells the minute you go to school, when you're a genius between 0 and 7 and your aura is perfectly clockwise and you can use your sixth sense. Then you go to school to get programmed and mentally institutionalized into your 5 senses. And then you live in your 5 senses for the rest of your life with your body cells going corruption, collusion during the daytime, and you go in a death spiral without realizing it, and you all die prematurely from stress-related diseases because you're living in your mind. And 90% of people are beyond the point of return and will never change the way they think because they're trapped beyond the point of return in their mind and completely spiritualless. And very few people are going to have the opportunity to cross back over in this celestial primordial state with their natural abilities. It's a known fact. Top scholars in the world know this. Very few people is going to make it here, right? Sheila Mastermind knows. The indigenous people, the elderly, they know. They live in spirituality with a 24th chromosome, clockwise where they repair everything and have 0 mental disorders and defects, and Westerners are riddled with them, with parasites. Delusional parasitosis called molegolems. And we found them crawling out of your skin back in the early 90s. And governments didn't listen to us. They first took it on board around 1999 when we discovered in the underground world molegolems, and they named it delusional parasitosis in 2003 when they declared a species in denial worldwide, living inside their mind when they declared in post-human states on the 27th September 99 worldwide. Your world is crazy, your parents are crazy, okay, and they're possessed by an outside influence that controls their reality without a sixth sense. Going into 6 mass extinction stripped from the sixth sense for the 6th time. And then everybody went bang into screens 8 hours a day on average into a 5 sense world possessed by an outside influence with addictions and unnatural selection. And everyone's become an actor and a Hollywood character and not using their natural abilities are not innocent. They're all actors now and create a character, living in an actor and a character and controlled by an outside influence with a voice of mind they give consent to. And they don't even believe in it. They're beyond the point of return. They do not know what they do. They can't use in more than 15% of their brain with high IQ. We can use 100%. So we know what they don't know. Because they can't think outside the mind. They can only think with the mind. And that's the highest, most sophisticated IQ people in the world. 125 plus IQ is brain deformity declared worldwide, which means it's brain deformity. Atheism is reverse psychology engineering and brain deformity, proven with DNA studies done. They don't even have faith in their own biological genes to use their own natural selection life and a natural ability that's in their own DNA. No matter what comes out of their mouth, they're trapped inside their mind with ego and self-centered behavior, and the whole Western civilization is trapped in ego with self-centered behavior and live in denial about it. They're not spirituality, they're mentality. And we've proven it back in the 90s. When I went into drugs, I became #1 drug lord in the underground world, and my product was found in every testing centre across Australia, responsible for bringing down the highest death toll of heroin, cocaine and violence and domestic violence in 30 years. I stopped the gang killing. I stopped the gang wars. I stopped domestic violence. I stopped kids getting taken off their parents and going to homes to get raped and bashed and become prisoners and prostitutes later, to the lowest statistics in 30 years, reported by my arresting officer, Craig Durant, and a whole team of people in the biggest study ever done with mental health research and DNA studies done. We found the cure of the human conditioning that's going to save humanity in our DNA with genetic process and a genetic memory. When I went into this, I went into methamphetamine, the most powerful enlightenment drug, as disclosed by CIA, the most powerful enlightenment drug and love drug and truth serum ever developed in human history. When I went into this, I started working with the 2 top scientists from NASA that came into Brisbane, Australia, and manufactured 10 ton of amphetamine and sent to Amsterdam and Florida every single month for 14 years straight from 1980 to 1994 legally. Pseudoephedrine was deemed to be dangerous, but not amphetamine. It's a reduction, it's safer. So there was never any laws brought out against amphetamine. So they set up a factory in New Farm and southeast corner of Queensland and developed 10 tons to Amsterdam and Florida every single month for 14 years straight, and it was legal. The Hive Black went up in 1984. Fester himself was sitting on the black web called the Hive until 2012. The Hive was a black web that was running until 2012, and Uncle Fester himself, that wrote 11 volume books, was sitting there himself. I know Fester personally. I know Uncle Fester personally, a top scientist from NASA, a top scientist that created the first chemical war bomb and took over all the science from Hitler in the most powerful truth serums in the world. And his 2 partners moved into Brisbane, Australia, right, in 1980. Okay? And by 1984, they were distributing 10 ton amphetamine to Florida and 10 ton to Amsterdam every month for 14 years straight, till 1994. And then we implemented the first laws in Australia against amphetamine with European international pressure. And when we first implemented those laws, I took over the underground world. When the Burris case went down, automatically things came and landed on my lap. And it's irrelevant. You want to know about me? You watch my 10 videos. You watch the 2 witnesses of wedding the bride. You watch the old prophet here, and you listen to me very carefully and start to discover who I really am, because I'm not in control of my own vessel, okay? And I'm not in control of myself because I gave consent to an outside influence that controls my vessel, okay? I gave consent for an outside influence to control my vessel. And therefore, I'm not controlled by my own mentality and living in a personality trapped inside my mind. So I'm very different than what you are. Totally different than all of you. And you have to understand what the great resurrection is all about and the crossover to be in this image, to do every single thing that Christ can and more with supernatural power and superhuman abilities. Because believe me, I know. I discovered like this. And so we get along here and we manufacture amphetamine. And I'm the first person in Coolum. In 1994, my crew was the first crew. My crew I took over was the first crew that created methamphetamine in Coolum on the north coast of Brisbane. From that moment onwards, it's important you understand they started the biggest inquiry with a special squad in the biggest operation in Australian history to stop methamphetamine, and everybody was using it on the streets. All the truckers were buying it, right, straight over the counter from every pharmacy. Okay? They were, right? And truckers were getting it everywhere. They stopped selling it over the pharmacy counter in 1980, and it went into the underground world like this. But let me tell you something. 85% of the whole population was on this drug. It was already set up. Every builder, truckie, police, cops, politicians, and people everywhere was on this drug. My dad was a truck driver, straight as a die. He was on this happy pill as well and didn't even know. Didn't even know. I knew a lot of people that was on this drug and didn't even know. They just thought on a happy pill, they wouldn't talk about it. They said, no, we don't take drugs. We take up happy pill. It's not a drug. They were oblivious to the fact. And what's astonishing about this is that I go into the manufacturing side. Okay, I started to hook up with the biggest cooks from the Burroughs case in the underground world. They were all my mates that I grew up with, and it was unbelievable. I had gone one way. I'd done a lot of things in my life, and they went another way. And then we hook up, and the same people involved in all these operations was my mates and people that I knew, coincidentally. And because I stamped an engine number in such a way, the X-ray machine could not detect it, and because I was extremely famous on mainstream media on 17 current affairs shows to mastermind the loopholes of laws that reset the model with prostitution that Peter Beattie used to remodel and revamp the laws with, that brought down the highest rapes and murders in prostitution, where we looked after prostitution and put them in a marketing strategy to pay tax and, self-declared tax. On the marketing strategy, I'd make it prim and proper and legal with psychiatrists and social workers. And that's why they said I create the most positive atmosphere on earth, because I had a relationship with everyone. And people had more faith in me because I believe in honesty is the best policy and being down to earth and create a reputation by word of mouth. And that's why people talk to me. And that's how people take to me everywhere. I became number one overnight in the underground world, in charge of the 7 most powerful networks, and stopped the gang killing and violence and working together to make the same drug on every testing centre across Australia. And then we were arrested in the Star Jam inquiry. But here's the truth. We brought down the highest death toll, healthcare, killing and violence, domestic violence in 30 years. Stopped all the violence to the lowest in 30 years. And our police officers, over 40 of them retire. Now listen to me carefully. In Supreme Court examination 2004, it's proven in a money laundering case, I gave 90% of my money away, more than $72 million, to everybody around me with solid evidence. And the cops and politicians and everybody else was lying in the court case with solid evidence. I was the only one telling the truth. And this is who I am. And everyone's a credit, even a lie about me. I can't trust anyone to tell the truth about me anywhere in the world, because everybody lies. The cops lie, the politicians lie, social media platform is full of lies and self-centered egotism and behavior. I can't trust one human being to tell the truth, because you can't trust any human being on earth to tell any truth at all. They just tell their fucking opinions because they're low life. They're low life with low knowledge, reliability, and don't have any. So you can't trust any person that lives in a mentality and a personality, because they've got no moral, guilt, and shame, and don't take any responsibility for their action when they lie about you or tell their version of their story and they know nothing about you. They're disgusting reptilian mentality, and we now know with DNA that it's the opposite way around. We know 95% of people in the world today is anti-clockwise. And they'll do what they're told. Sorry, 98% will do what they're told. Because their voltage reliability in their aura is anti-clockwise. 2% mental disorder and defects in 1960 to 98% today, and everybody lives in denial about it. Now the kids are born with parasites and chronic diseases, and 77% of Western children, because they're in denial. A total species in denial. Haven't got a care factor at all. Haven't got any compassionate feelings. Don't have any codependent relationships or soulmate relationships in any Westerner. They conquer, debate, and divide with their own families and friends and can't even keep them together anymore. The most dysfunctional human beings is a Western whitener, Western white Westerner. Selfish, self-centered, egotistical, judgmental, competitive creatures. And they're not spirituality. They're just mentality and Hollywood actors and American dreamers and wannabes that lies every day with their opinions. And that's the only thing they care about. It's the voices in their mind that tell them to do that with their self-centered ego. Artificial human beings worldwide going through transhuman states into a zombie apocalypse with a body snatching virus reported worldwide because they gave consent to molar golems, delusional parasitosis, and they're riddled with the parasites. No matter what comes out of their mouth, a hostile entity that they give consent to. And we proved that back in 1994 when we developed bread manna, the very drug that Enoch, Moses, and Christ developed. And in the Sumerians, they created methamphetamine, and that's what they created in Babylon, right? They created that in the Babylon days, and they created that, right, in the Pharaoh days with their sun gods with light, power, frequencies, and energy, right, and vibrations. So people are living in a polarized state, right, and that gave a meth in bread manna, and their meth has a different pH level for their serotonin. And their serotonin, right, is what gives them the meth effect, right, with the sacred secretion, with DMT, okay, opiates, MDMA, and alert, alive, awake, and aware in your primal state when the pH is in the correct level. And what they did in those days was they changed the pH so everybody's under mind control. Everybody was under mind control. Through the serotonin and the pH level they conduct with, because they conduct to an outside influence on their reality when they give consent in their mind and live in their mind in 5 sense world without realizing it. Graphene oxide in the vaccination is registered as an electronic medical device. Okay? As Harari says, we're going to remember COVID vaccination as the time we went under the skin of surveillance. The same product is under the secret covenant. The same product comes from iodine crystal and methamphetamine, ADHD medication with left and right, uppers and downers, with a barcode system in your aura, in your body cells, DNA. Light, power and energy in vibrations. ADHD medication, methamphetamine, is uppers and downers. They give you light or take it away. They give you power or take it off you. They balance you and keep you under mind control. Believe it or not, I can control your mind with amphetamine. I can control what mood you're in and balance you out to be calm, so I've got you under control. Hyperactive people has an ability to use their sixth sense far more powerful, and they're not limited. They put you in the drug to limit you when you're hyperactive. When you go auras clockwise and you get told you got ADHD in your mind, they lie to you because you're not patient, right? You're not patient like other people are. You think 7 times faster. Like Bruce Lee can master his mind by 24, okay? By 12, you back karate blindfolded and block every punch 7 times faster than anyone can think critically inside their mind with their conscious thinking and their consciousness and thinking critically where they think about it, and the voice tells you do it, and don't do it with an IQ. That's only a personality. Well, a child, as you can see on YouTube, they're perfect from 0 to 7 clockwise with their sixth sense. And you see third-eye children, superhuman by 8 years old, that can read, draw, and write blindfolded like Bruce Lee. And by 12 years old, they can predict that this car coming around the corner what colour it is. Okay, they can predict who's ringing on your phone, right? Who's ringing on your phone and what they're wearing on the other end, worldwide with a universal, codependent, in tune to the power. So a child has remote viewing and deja vu at 12 years old, but they go to school to be mentally institutionalized with voice in mind, with an IQ, and think they're intelligent when they rock out of school and think their parents are dinosaurs. And then understand this: when a child is innocent, the first thing he's introduced to is a boogeyman, the monster in the bed, okay? An outside influence on his reality that scares the living shit out of him, and his imagination runs wild. And his parent comes in, it's just a dream, go back to sleep. And as you can see in the movie with that kid in the restaurant, the shadow controls everybody except for the kid in the restaurant, right? Same with Keanu Reeves in the movie Matrix. The shadows control everyone with IQ behavior except for Keanu Reeves. Same as the movie Limitless. He takes a drug, he comes out of his brain, out of his mind, out of psychedelic effect that he's engineered to program with in a psychological mind, in a psychiatric ward. He lives in a psychiatric ward where he suffers mental disorders and dies prematurely in a psychiatric ward. Right? That's what you live in, your psychiatric ward, where your psychology, mentality is your personality. And then he takes a drug in Limitless. And what happens? Boom, he gets a clarification. He cleans up his apartment overnight. You can see it's meth. You can see it's meth because he becomes proactive. Boom, he cleans up the apartment. And he gets a clarification. And he comes right out of the psychedelic effect, out of his mind. Outside the mind, like the movie Limitless, like Keanu Reeves that resurrects from the outside in and controls his business from the outside in his primordial state, as Plato describes in 15 books. Go through the light of the tunnel, go right through the cave, stick your head at the light of the tunnel, and the grass is 10 times greener, and the sun's 10 times shiner. You mean like when you die and you cross over and you don't want to come back? Where it's so fantastic, where you can feel the love, where you're high as a kite, and you can feel the connection that you're with love pouring all over you. When you die, you don't want to come back. You get a clarification, you mean the same thing? Exactly the same thing. And when you do not know what you do, and you do not know when you cross over, to have these abilities, you haven't got a clue what you're doing, because you can't master your mind. You're not alive. You're dead weight like a zombie. And that's why Christ said you're nothing but dead weight until you come alive and cross over. And you learn that when you cross over, because you have 10 times more power, divine power to command nature. You have 10 times more love. You have 10 times more influence in your reality that nobody else has. And it gives 100% your brain because you're controlling your vessel from the outside in instead of the inside out. So in the movie Limitless, he gets a clarification. He writes a book overnight that's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant overnight. He goes down to Wall Street and makes millions of dollars, and he gets the attention from the highest IQ entrepreneurs because they've never seen anyone like this walk into Wall Street and make money like this. So it gets their attention, right? They wouldn't want you to have that ability, would they? They wouldn't want you to have that kind of ability, would they? That's why I became the most wanted in the underground world, the most wanted in the Star Chamber career, because I was the most powerful person with the sixth sense that had all these abilities. And I got them for treasoning, and they had to shut the case down. I got them for corruption, coercion, collusion, because they steal your taxpayers' money. And they stole all your taxpayers' money by the worldbank.org in every UN country. That's why the evidence is right here. Why is worldbank.org paying out $250 billion to the stolen big generation in Australia? You need to follow the money trail and understand what I'm saying. You were flourishing with money in 1980, so no one had to work any more than 20 hours by 220. So the elite did a transfer of wealth with $37 trillion to build the underground tunnel and set everything up in a depopulation plan. They stole all your taxpayers' money by the elite and by the UN in one bank. That's why America, China, and every country owes the same bank. One bank. Which bank do you think it is that keeps lending money out to America and China and all the top countries in the world? And why do you think they all owe money to a bank? Why do they owe money? Australia's the most richest country in the world, and it owes money to the same bank. How's that possible? You want to explain to me why these countries owe money to the same bank that's paying out the Australian business because they stole your money? Right in front of your face. And that's the obvious. They did a transfer of wealth with $37 trillion and broke all your banks by 2008. And they got all your fucking money. The elite. Setting up the depopulation plan with mind control. And most people will never wake up from amnesia and the reincarnation trap because they're trapped beyond the point of return. We exposed it in 97 with the hub. We told you worldwide in 99, but you went in denial. You all went in denial when we told you. You're under mind control by alien intelligence and outside influence by the return of the gods, and you don't believe in it. Well, how do you know? You can only use 7 to 15% of your brain. So how do you know? When you can't master your own mind, somebody else does. Because you can't use 100% of your brain. And that's a God-given gift that you're brought into this world with in your own DNA, with your own genetic memory and your own genetic process. And guess what? When we developed bread manna from the Sumerian tablets, the most prevalent enlightenment drug in the world from a plant called mayang, molegolems came out. That's the first thing we observed when people came back in their primal state, use 100% of their brain. Molegolems came out of the skin. Delusional parasitosis. And that's the first and only time we've ever seen them come out of the skin was when we developed meth, amphetamine, laboratory made correct in Australia. And when that drug went around the world, was the only time in the 90s we saw molegolems come out. Ever since then, the drugs with ice and the wrong pH level, we haven't seen much of molegolems at all. Very little. Now they control everybody. Delusional parasitosis. And people don't believe in it. Mate, you got to do a cleanse of parasites for febendazole 222 milligram, and you got to stop eating for 40 days and stop the unnatural selection. And we teach you that in 40 days, how to cross over and go for a transformation in your DNA with the book Freedom by Jim McGee's, how to be the Holy Grail of life and the Holy Breath of life we're not breathing, who's won a Nobel Prize without a credential to recreate the second degrees and conduct with the Holy Breath of life to restore your Neuralink and your natural process to go clockwise in your aura, in your DNA to spirituality, to cross back over into your spirituality and away from your mentality. You can't live in two mindsets at the same time. Christ told you this. When Moses took 40,000 Israelites across the desert, they all had serpents in their mind. They were suffering the human condition in here, with the psychedelic effect, program engineered into their mind, and did not know what they're doing. The same way the whole world's in today. Suffering the human condition, every single person, every single Western, 98.7% of the population suffers the human condition with their aura anti-clockwise. And in order to restore that, you've got to go through the book Freedom, to go through every rabbit hole, to stick your head through the light in a tunnel, or take the red pill and you can't go back because you wake up from amnesia. And Plato describes in 15 books. So does Jeremy Gers, who studied Plato and the human condition for 45 years and found the last human being born on earth that can do every single thing that Christ can and more. And that's us. We are the ones in the biggest DNA study ever done, in a 34-year study and 16 years of DNA study. It's us. We can do what Christ can and more because we found our primordial state in our DNA with our biofields through a drug called manna. That's right. Moses gave the drug called manna, bread manna. You can read about it on Google. You can read it in the oldest Bible in the world. Bread manna brought people back in the primordial state, and then they created paradise. They were in the desert. Then they had the relationship to create 10 times more fruit with 10 times more nutrition value because they bear the right fruit, and then nature works in their side and develops 10 times more fauna, 10 times more fruit, 10 times more nutrition value when they bear the right fruit, which means you have a placebo effect that's anti-clockwise, destroying the world and collapsing 38 to 98% nutrition value worldwide. And animals going around in circles and birds falling out of the sky with amnesia and vertigo and Hawaiian syndromes in peer reports in every hospital in the world, a zombie apocalypse and a body snatching virus, they call it, and it's smaller golems, delusional parasitosis. And their body cells are anti-clockwise, and you can see it in their body cells because it's in their body cells. It's a known fact. The parasites are incellular in the body cells, anti-clockwise, and don't work together. They work against each other. In corruption, coercion, collusion, they're in your body cells. And the parasites cannot be seen in any x-ray. And it creates 9 cancers, 9 infections, 9 inflammatory diseases, 9 mental disorders, and 9 inflammations. 9 delusional parasitosis. You know where they come from? A cat. A cat. All 9 of them. Right? That's where they're mostly found. Right? They're in our civilization, in our food, in our products, in venoms, in toxic poisons, and the decision that we make. unnatural selection worldwide. You understand the toxic poison that you're eating today in most of your food processes and things that you eat on a daily basis? Do you understand the shit you're consuming? You have no idea. 67% of every single thing you consume has toxic poison in it that harms you, approved by governments. Why would things like this be approved by the governments across the world? With toxic poisons, right, with more than 15 different snake venoms and shellfish venoms, and so many things sold worldwide by companies all over the world. Companies in every country selling poisons on the internet. Same with adrenochrome, normalized as well. And porn websites and black webs with child sex offenders and snuff movies as well. That's on the black webs. Do you know what's going on in the world today behind your back? You see the Royal Commission paying out for 23 years? Cops, politicians, pastors and preachers and teachers and prosecutors are the ones raping all your kids, and the people you trust the most could be your best friend, your best uncle for 10 years, 20 or 30 years, and you wouldn't even know. So they're the biggest deceivers in the world that are actors. You can't trust an actor on social media platform. I can guarantee you the people that molded with the best grammar that wants to get your attention are the most likely to be evil, because they're not being down to earth and honest, right, and create a reputation by word of mouth. They wouldn't know how to. You go home with these species and have a look how many relationships they really have, and look what they do for society in real life, and not just an actor talking shit all day. You'll learn a lot of things about Westerners and different species here that are not the same as us. And you'll realize that more than 85% of people will lie their teeth out to make a name for themselves. Couldn't care less. No moral, guilt and shame. Couldn't care about nothing other than themselves. Only want to make a name for themselves. Only actors. No moral, guilt and shame at all. No spirituality. Only mentality with grammar. Selected like an atheism, right, to make a name for themselves. And think they're great gods. And God's given a gift to mankind. And that's what atheists are like. They think they're God's given gift to mankind, like they're special. And that's what every American's like, with self-envy and self-pride, and couldn't care less. Only care about capitalism and the marketing strategy. And that's what they're designed with. In every single thing they do. Every single unnecessary selection they make. They're not organic, they're not down to earth, and they're not innocent. And they're far from it. They don't live by the wineyard rule equally, how to govern life equally under the House of Lords and under the Natural Justice Act. And it will prevail, because my case in Australia became the most corrupt case in Australian history by Chief Justice New Jersey under the Natural Justice Act. So it does prevail. I got the Star Chamber inquiry for treasoning. They shut the case down. I got them for treasoning on my money laundering case. I got them for treason, put my wife in condition protection against their will. I got them for treason on every fucking level, because that's all they're designed with. Law and order documents with chaos is designed by treasoning. Every single thing in your market strategy is designed with stress, fear, and anxiety deliberately to control you. And you're under that kind of mind control with your body cells in corruption collusion during the daytime and can only be at nighttime, because you're living under stress environments and stress diseases, spreading like a virus and affecting fauna and nature collapsing, and animals going around in circles and birds falling out of the sky with vertigo, and people losing their magnetic pulse worldwide. Lost all their genetic pulse, lost their sixth sense, lost their spirituality, and gave it up for their mentality. Sold out for a personality to be selfish and egotistical and to have free will, and they got free will, and that's why they're all in their own agendas with their own truth, just like every other sexual agenda and self-centered behavior. They live on apps all day, okay? They sex all day. They play with their dick and play with gamings all day, and there's nothing human about these species sitting on a screen all day. Nothing human about people sitting on a screen all day and trying to make a name for themselves. They're the artificial ones. They're not humble people. They wouldn't have a clue what they're doing, right? Not in the mindset they live in. They can't think clockwise. They can only think anti-clockwise in their mind. They can't think with mental telepathy, ESP, remote viewing, telekinesis, levitation, spoon bending, clock winding, Foley, space and time with deja vu, to predict the future, prevent what's going to happen with dimensional thinking and the God-given gift that God gave them. Because it doesn't work. They have amnesia, trapped in the reincarnation, trapped in the mind, and can only use 15% of their brain, which means they do not know what they do, no matter what comes to their mouth. Okay, they cannot feel the truth, And they can't use their aura to think clockwise because it's their spirituality, not their mentality in a personality that justify what they believe in. It's not religious, political, culture, New Age. It's not artificial intelligence. It's not evolution mutation. It's not grammar. It's a mathematical genius to master your mind. It's maths. It's selections with a universal language that gives you the codependent power to command nature that you do not have. My arresting officer, after 10 years, saw me bring down the highest stairs of and watched the plummet work on every police station across the country to the lowest it ever was. He not only commends me as affidavit and retires, he comes to see me personally and has a personal relationship. Not only him, but several other cops. When they realize I have an angel watching over me that gives me the divine power that they cannot understand. But they've seen it with their own two eyes and watched me like a hawk for 10 years in the most powerful surveillance for 3.5 years solid in the Star Chamber inquiry. Go read my documents in the brief evidence, 3.5 meter brief of evidence. Read every fucking document. And that's only 10% in the brief of the documents they got. You watch my videos linked to this post. There's 50 meters of documents in a 34-year study and a 16-year DNA study by the biggest think tank and the biggest biologist in the world. By the biggest think tank and the biggest biologist and DNA study done and mental health research in the world. And I've left divine intervention with divine power and miracles in hospital like no other. Like no other. Like no other recorded in history. I can do everything Christ can and more. I've been dead 3 times, brought someone back to life 3 times, with peer reports, and the most powerful opponent in 2003, the one and only. And I am the one and only in every study done. It's a fact. I developed Limitless, the drug, bred manna, and brought people back in the primal state on every testing center across Australia. And it concerned them when we found out how to break the mind control. It concerned them when we found out how to break the mind control. And we broke the mind control. We broke free from the human condition that's going to save humanity. We broke free from the mind control. And you see that in the movie Limitless. And it's being suppressed to this very day. Because 98.7% is under that mind control. And take graphene oxide in so many different things. And it's not about graphene. It's about the fact they can't create the second secretion. They can't use the natural process. They can't use the third eye with their sixth sense to think for themselves, to think outside the mind with dimensional thinking, remote viewing, mental telepathy and ESP, and deja vu to predict the future and prevent what's going to happen. They cannot. You read my book, The Testimony of Drug Reborn, in this post. I predict the future and prevent what's going to happen, and you can see it. Every single thing about 220 onwards, I predicted perfectly, and I wrote a book in 2004, and they put out 66 court orders to stop that book because I saw the future in the looking glass that they saw, and why they decided to go underground tunnels, military tunnels, and nuclear tunnels everywhere around the world. Why Trump and Biden's going under there as well. Why the elite's going under there by 227. They saw it in the looking glass. Why they tell you by NATO worldwide there's a nuclear warning on all your phone apps, a new warning put on worldwide, and it's only get ready for 3 days, or 3.5 days with food. The Bible warns you about this. 3.5 days. The Bible tells you they saw the future in the little glass, and believe me, I know the future. 227 is your end date. You don't cross over by then. You will not go in a new timeline with 7-fold Whistleblowers to create heaven and earth. You will go into the extinction. The 6th mass extinction strip from the 6th sense for the 6th time, and you cannot run away from this. Nobody can. They saw the future in the World War Z zombie apocalypse. And you're in the zombie apocalypse right now because everybody's a zombie. They don't have any power in their aura, in their body cells, and they speak shit. They haven't had a DNA test done. They haven't proven to themselves that their aura is clockwise 24 hours a day with a genetic repair kit. With all that ancestral memory, they haven't had a DNA study done. They live in a delusion worldwide, especially Americans that think they're positive in their spirituality when they live in mentality. They don't even know Well, DNA doesn't lie. It's a book of life. You get a test during the daylight while you're awake, and I promise you, your aura's not clockwise. And that's your spirituality in the sixth sense. And it's not even working. And DNA doesn't lie. And every human being on earth does. Only a handful crosses over with the book Freedom by Jeremy Givers and When I Breathe and Program, the Holy Grail of Life and the Holy Breath of Life. Only a handful of people will cross back over in the primordial state to do what Christ can and more. I developed Limitless, the drug, bread, manna, that Moses and Christ used, that Enoch made. And Enoch knew. He's a wizard. He created bread, manna. So did Moses and so did Christ. And so does Tibetan monks. What did Christ do? He learned reincarnation, life after life, and woke up from amnesia at 24 years old. And he said, I'm son of David, son of Abraham. And trust me, my genetic memory is I'm the son of Christ, son of David, son of Abraham, and you will not know who I am. Well, believe me, you might want to learn really fast who the hell I really am. Because I went through a transformation, and I'm not in charge of my own business. And I was put on this path deliberately with amnesia myself to go into this, to know what the truth is, and discover the real truth about mind control and how to break free from the human condition that we suffer from so much. So therefore, the book Freedom by Jeremy Givers is the cure of the human condition that's going to save humanity. I found the cure of the human conditioning with bread manna, the drug, a sacred secretion. It's only a mind manipulation drug that recreates the sacred secretion to conduct to an outside influence that gives you the power, divine power to command nature in such a way that no weapon from against you can prosper. So that no weapon from against you can prosper. And your DNA alters with genetic memory and a genetic process to preserve the self-preservation made for life in your own body and your own DNA. And Christ was right, he knew. That's why they drained his blood. That's why they cut all the disciples and drained their blood, because they could resurrect. They had the tools to resurrect. They had all their supernatural power. And Christ knew and learned in 40 days how to cross over. And he went for a transformation for 3.5 years, and he taught the disciples how to cross over in 40 days and went for a transformation for 3.5 years, and then they could do what he can and more. And he was the only one in the world that could do it in 3.5 years. And I'm the only human being on earth that can resurrect humanity and cross them over in 40 days and a 3.5 year process the same way Christ did, because I know what no one else knows. It took Moses 40 years. It took every other apostle and prophet 40 years to cross over or more. Moses was sent in the desert for 40 years, and it took him over 40 years to teach 40,000 Israelites how to cross over. Elijah was sent out in the bush to go walk about for 40 years. They all went. Even Enoch went through this for over 40 years. But Christ was brought up by the archangel Michael, who was Enoch, wrapped that into the future to bring Christ up to be perfect with those tools. And he learned to master his mind by 24 years old and cross over with a 40-day process. In 40 days, he crossed over and went through the transformation and taught the disciples how to do that so they could do what he can and more. And that's the only time in world history that that's ever happened. He was the absolute Alpha Omega. And that's why you were told, oh, we will not know who I am, but you'll know by the tools, you'll know by the evidence, you'll know by DNA, the book of life, and you'll know by the transformation in people that are followers in their testimonies that's gone through this. You will see it with your own two eyes with their testimonies right on these platforms. How they went through this in 40 days and did the crossover with natural selection and natural order, and going through this with the book Freedom by Jeremy Givers and When I Breathe and Program, the Holy Grail of Life and the Holy Breath of Life. And believe me, they're the only people in the world that's crossing over back in their primordial state. The rest are failing, no matter what comes out of their mouth. There's nobody else in the world teaching the resurrection that can do it in 3.5 years. Jeremy Givers says it's going to take decades. It took Moses 40 years and three generations. And everywhere in human history, it's taken decades. Mastermind takes decades. The biggest masterminds in the world take decades. Not me. I was developed this way the minute I come into this world with my natural selection in life. and my natural order with supernatural power. I was developed for this moment and created bread manna with the most powerful confirmation and the biggest, most powerful crossover in human history. And no one else in the world is teaching it except for me, because I am the limitless one. I am the one developed Limitless in the movie, and everyone's a credit thief and a liar. Every American is a credit thief and a liar. They make movies on us. I'm the real Keanu Reeves in the Matrix. I'm the real fucking deal in every document. And they're nothing but liars and credit thieves, like every American is. A contents credit thief and a liar. And that's what they all are. Content thief, credit thieves and liars, and don't care about humanity. That's why they don't tell the truth. And it's all propaganda. And Americans and Westerners live on propaganda because they love it. And they feed off it. Propaganda. No one is honest. No one is down to earth. And no one creates a reputation by word of mouth because they're not humble, spiritual human beings. They're not in a primordial state. They're in personalities with artificial talents, with amnesia, and do not know what they do as actors. And they're all actors for someone else without even realizing it. That's why they suffer stress, fear, anxiety, confusion, frustration, delusion, and paranoia, and parasites, and live in denial at the same time because they're a species of denial. And every Western is a species of denial. I can guarantee you that. Okay? If they don't cross over and go back in their innocent, back in their primordial state, back in their childhood, back in their innocent, follow my footsteps, they'll never fucking know. They will never know. And if they never know, they will never know. Because you have to cross over to know. Otherwise, you'll never know.